Hi everyone, welcome back to my backyard. A hummingbird just flew right between Betsy and I. And Betsy went, whoa, a hummingbird just flew between us, right in front of my face. Anyway, in a previous video, I talked about cutting a baby gem boxwood in half. And I told you I would make a video and tell you how I did that. So this is that video. Now I have the baby gem in the backyard. This is its other half that I talked about, that I potted up in a nursery pot. There is a compromise when you divide one plant into two. And the compromise is you go from a single decent looking plant to two plants that are much smaller and half of them are gone. But as gardeners, we are always patient. We're living in the present and gardening in the present, but I think we're always planning for the future, which makes this really, really simple to do, cut a plant in half, because I can visualize not what this looks like now. I can see what it looks like now, but I can visualize what it's going to look like next season and the season after that as it grows and as it fills in. So I think the compromise of taking a decent looking plant and making it smaller and cutting it in half is well worth it. So I'm just going to teach you the fundamentals of this. You can do this process of cutting a plant in half and having two with almost every variety. Boxwood for sure. I'm going to talk about hostas. You can do them with hydrangeas, and you can do this with peonies, the tubers you can cut down. Boxwood and hosta are sturdy plants. They can take a bit of abuse and they're still going to come out looking great. So the fundamentals of this are, when you go to the nursery, you are going to get down into the plants and check them out. Betsy, if you don't mind coming in here a little bit. This is a boxwood that has a single stem, and it's perfect for a single plant. You can't cut down the center of a single stem. Then I think you will kill the plant. What you want to look for is a boxwood that when you open it up and get into it, and I do this at nurseries and garden centers, and I put one plant to the side and I move on to the next, is, excuse me, see how I have 3 stems, maybe 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 stems in here? You can find a spot where you're going to divide that, and so that's what you want to look for. So I'm going to do that for you. I prepared this plant first. I have had it soaking in a bucket of water with the water just over the edge of this pot for about a half an hour. I really wanted to soak this plant. So I'm going to take it out of its pot. I'm going to put some gloves on here. And I'm going to go back and decide where I want to divide it. I think right here. I'm going to take these 2 on the right, these 2 on the left. Actually, I'm going to switch it around. It can take a bit of playing around. Where this plant I think is going to divide the safest, believe it or not, is right here. I have 1 stem on my right side and I have 3 on my left. So it's not going to be real even, but these 2 really are bifurcating, and I can see where they go into a single trunk here. These 2 are bifurcating, and I can almost see where they go into a single trunk here. This is the lone stem that I can really get it apart. So I am going to just start by doing a little pulling, just pulling it apart. And now I'm going to cut into it. I always hold my breath a little bit when I cut into it. get through that top quarter. That's the hardest part to get through. Making a bunch of noise. There we go. Now I'm through that top quarter, and you saw how much muscle power it took, and I was aggressive. You saw that too. But what I have now is 2 boxwoods, and you want to plant them up right away. So I have prepared 2 pots that I'm going to put them in. I have some garden debris at the base of them, and I'm going to give credit where credit is due. And I have a bunch of YouTube mentors, gardening mentors that I follow. And today I'm going to mention Linda Vodder twice. The first time I'm going to mention her is because she taught me to put garden debris at the bottom of pots rather than rocks to fill up space and to cover the hole, the water hole. So I learned that from her. I'm going to test this out. This boxwood is right at that level, right at that pot's level, and I want to get some soil in the base of it. So I'm actually going to take this a step farther, and I'm just going to cut off the bottom 1/16 of this plant. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm going to cut off the bottom 1/16 of this plant. It's just tiny, tiny little roots that have come out the base of the pot anyway. And that way it's going to fit in the pot just a little bit better. So I have my garden soil right here. It's just a premium garden soil. To this I'm going to add a little handful of Osmocote, which is a slow release fertilizer. I'm going to put a handful of some plant tone or some starter fertilizer. And I'm simply going to mix it up. And then I'm going to add it to my pots. About a handful. And I can push it down. And then I'm going to plant these. Now, again, this first season, you need patience because this is not going to be centered in these pots. If you look at these other boxwoods I've cut in half and potted, they are off center. And it's simply because I did cut them in half. So like I said, they're not going to be perfectly centered. I am going to take the rounded portion of this half of the boxwood and just fit it into the pot, just like that. And I'll take the rounded part of this boxwood and fit it into its pot. And then I'm going to fill up the remaining space with potting soil. I'm going to give it a nice pack down. Alrighty. I'm going to leave a little space between the soil and the edge of the pot line for one more Linda Vodder suggestion, and that is just mulching with gravel. But that is to come. Let me clean up my space. I'm like one of those chefs on TV that takes all the extra vegetables off the cutting board. Okay. So if you want to topiary this, if you want to turn it into a topiary, it's best to do it now before you put the gravel in, because the leaves will get all over the gravel. And sure, you can cover the gravel up, you can clean it up, but it's much easier to do it right now. For this part, I am going to take my gloves off and I'm going to put my glasses on so I can really see what I'm doing. This is a 3-stem, and that's okay. You can cut off these stems and just have a single if you want, but I don't think a 3-stem's going to look bad. I'm going to take off all the bottom leaves, take another look at it, and I might change my mind from what I just said and do a single stem. My goal is to eventually have this grow up to be a single ball topiary. These are, that I'm working on right now, these are Green Mountain Boxwood. And you can do this with any variety of boxwood. Baby Gem, as I showed you, Green Mountain, Green Gem. So I'm going to start there. I'm going to give this a good haircut off the top. And I'm starting to turn it into a ball. Kind of cutting up at a 45-degree angle on the top of it here. I'm going to take this off. Some of these, like this little arm here, I'm going to take him off, and I'm going to take this little arm off right there. And you just look and you see what blends into this ball that you're visualizing and what doesn't. And these two don't. So I'm going to take these two little arms off there. Okay. Oh, excuse me. It's getting really close because at this point there's only so much you can do. I think I'm going to take this little guy off right here. And I'm actually, believe it or not, I'm going to take this one off. So I'm going to leave it like that. It's a little more wide. It's a little asymmetrical. It looks more like a rectangle at this point, but as you trim it, new growth will appear, and then you can retrim it into the form you want. If you look over here, Bets, show them this boxwood here. Look at all this new growth. This was asymmetrical at one point, and all the light green leaves are the new growth. This one I can make look a little bit more standard because it has one strong single stem here coming up. Oh, excuse me, little guy. I'm going to take these bottom branches off. I'm going to really give him a good push down. And then I have to look and see, do I want these branches? If I take them off, it will look like that. If I leave them on, like this. So I am gonna take them off. They're just too low for my liking to become incorporated into this ball that I'm visualizing closer to the top. And I want one that has a nice long stem. So now I have a big decision to make. It V's off here. Do I want to leave this or take it? And I think I'm going to take it because that even gives me a longer stem look. So now, and you can tell how fragile a longer stem is. It doesn't have as much support initially as the three-stemmed one I just made. And it has a much, much smaller little potential ball here, but that's okay. I'm going to just remove some of these lower leaves down here. There we go. And I'm going to leave it at that. So, because it isn't supported well, it's a long, long stem, and it's going to blow in the wind. I'm going to take some bamboo rods here, and I'm just going to support it. And I do this with all of my topiaries that I make. I look how I want it to stand up, and I simply, this is the best time to place the bamboo, and I just stick it into the soil Just give it a little push there. And then I just have some garden wire. And I am simply going to just wrap the garden wire around the boxwood stem and the bamboo. Nothing too tight. Just enough so that when the wind blows, it's not going to blow over. Just like that. And then this one, even though it has 3 stems, this one's standing up pretty tall on its own. But I think I still want to give it some support. This end's a little bit smaller, so that's going to be easier to go in. And I just take a wire, and I don't think I have to support the whole thing, but maybe the center stem. And I'm just simply going to, not too tight, wrap it around that stem and then wrap it around the bamboo, just to support it. Keep it growing straight. Now I can readjust this, and I can readjust the wire as I need to. Okay, now to dress it up, as I said, I learned this mulching tip from one of my YouTube mentors. And she simply takes gravel and she places it on top of the soil. And not only does the gravel help retain water and moisture when you water the plant, the soil will stay moist longer. It protects the soil if you have any little critters in your yard that like to get into it. But it also looks really pretty. I think it looks really pretty.
I think it looks really cute. Makes it look very put together.
Exactly. You're right. It makes it look very put together. And then I want to show you, if you have a bunch of different pots and you display all of these together because you have a stash of little boxwood topiaries, because you can't pass up a boxwood that has a couple, 2, 3 stems at a nursery or a garden center. A girl can't have too many cute little boxwood topiaries. But if you put all of these pots together, even though the pots are different, and I have a bunch of different types of pots here, the gravel makes them look uniform. I think you can display them together. So that's another reason I like it. Let me take a moment though and show you how you can do this with a hosta as well. So once again, you're gonna go to your garden center. This is actually a hosta that I divided a couple days ago. This one is called Guacamole. I love its big leaves. And it looks limey green. It's so pretty. I love hosta. But if you look, I have divided it. This is now, it's a single plant. It has a new leaf growing in the center, but I can't divide this any further. You see that, Bets?
Yeah.
Where I went to one of my favorite nurseries earlier this week, and I found this hosta. This one happens to be called Dancing Queen. You can tell I like limey green plants. But Dancing Queen has 2 new sets of leaves coming up. So I went right for that because I'm going to be able to divide her right down the center like that. That's what I look for. So let me just show you. Just want to show you to give you courage. You can do this yourself. I'm just going to pop the second one into a nursery pot again. And again, I put garden debris at the bottom of it. Let me get this ready. I'm going to put a scoop of that same garden soil that has a little Osmocote in it, a little starter fertilizer, or a little bit of plant tone. Dividing hosta isn't as nerve-wracking to me as dividing boxwood is. You just have to find the separation and start cutting. In fact, if this were to be in my garden bed, I have done this before, I can go up to Hosta, find the separation and take a really sharp spade and cut into the earth and take out a piece of Hosta and transplant it somewhere else in my yard. They're very easy to transplant. And you just go straight down, and then again you have 2 plants from 1. Put a little more soil back in its original pot. These will go into the ground at some point later this weekend. So I'm just going to repot them. And you can put some of the original soil they came with in here as well. Some of the potting soil you made up. And this one is going to go into this one. Betsy, you're going to have to stop me now because I could do this all day long.
With all your plants?
With all the plants. So, from one single boxwood and one single hosta, I now have 4 plants, and I'm thrilled. So I hope you guys have the courage to do this at home. Soak the plant really, really thoroughly in a bucket of water first. Open it up, find the line you want to divide down, give it a pull apart, and then just take an old bread knife and just start sawing, and then pot it up right away, and you're going to be really happy with the outcome. So thank you for sticking with me, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.